Purdue this season is bringing in a lot of transfers, and if you're wondering why, it's because they have a grand total of 1 starters returning from last season. That's right, 21 are either gone to the transfer portal or maybe a few to the NFL, but based on how Purdue played last season, it definitely wasn't that many. Devin Mockabee, the lone guy returning as the starting running back. Everybody else either wasn't a starter last year or came in through the transfer portal, which means that Purdue is going to be in for a interesting, to say the least, season. Their first 2 games are also going to be their most likely wins. You got Ball State and Southern Illinois. I think it's pretty safe to say that Purdue will win both of these games, but I mean, you never really know. One of these teams could potentially pull off an upset. I think Southern Illinois is one of the most likely FCS over FBS upsets for this season. So I'll have to watch out for that one, especially with USC coming up the week after. Don't look ahead past that FCS team, even though the Trojans are going to be pretty good this season. You got Jaden Mayava as the starting quarterback after taking over from Miller Moss later in the season. He honestly played pretty well for the majority of the game USC had against Notre Dame. And as long as he can limit turnovers, unlike he did at the end of that game, I think USC is going to have a very solid season. Not a college football playoff season, like some people think, but they'll have a good year. Around, 8 or so wins is very possible. And I do think that, unfortunately for Purdue, one of those wins is going to be against the Boilermakers, which will drop Purdue to 2-1.
And the following week is a road trip to South Bend to face Notre Dame after just making an appearance in the national championship. And Notre Dame is just flat out the better team in every possible way. Yes, they have a new starting quarterback this year, most likely going to be CJ Carr after Riley Leonard moved on to the NFL. But it doesn't even matter who the starting quarterback is going to be because they have Jeremiah Love back as their starting running back, one of the favorite non-quarterbacks for the Heisman Trophy this year. It's not going to matter what Purdue puts out on the field. Jeremiah Love is going to run all over this Purdue defense. Boilermakers lose 2 in a row. And then after the bye week, they face Illinois at home. And Illinois is a team a lot of people like this season to repeat the success that Indiana had last year. And that is due to Luke Altmaier returning as their starting quarterback after Illinois was very, very good last year, capping off their season with a win over South Carolina in the Citrus Bowl. And with so much returning production on the defense as well, the only thing Illinois needs to figure out is their wide receiver room, but I'm sure Luke Altmaier can figure it out fairly quickly, and this game against Purdue will not be too difficult. So Altmaier should be just fine regardless of who his wide receivers are. Purdue drops 3 in a row to go to 2-3.
Then it's back-to-back road trips, the first of which against the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Now, Minnesota is a team that we actually think is going to be pretty good next season. They have a decent amount of returning production and a young starting quarterback in Drake Lindsey, who I think is going to have a pretty solid season. Overall, Minnesota is just a much more talented team than Purdue. They have the home field advantage. This one's a no-brainer. Now, here's a game that Purdue might actually be able to win, and that one is the road trip to Northwestern. I think that the Wildcats are also going to be a pretty bad team this season. Just when you look at their transfer portal class and their returning production, it does not suggest that they're going to be making a bowl game. You throw in the fact that they have all the turmoil around not having a home stadium to play in. This one, I believe, is going to be in that makeshift stadium on the lake. And I think that that's going to give maybe a tiny home field advantage to Northwestern just because of the winds that they'll have been used to practicing in. Other than that, not much to be said about this one. I think that the Wildcats are a little bit better than Purdue, so they should be able to get this win. But I'd say this is one of Purdue's better chances to pick up a Big Ten win.
And the big reason we're going to pick Northwestern in this one is because Preston Stone is coming in as the Wildcats starting quarterback, and he does have starting experience at SMU last season. So I trust him a lot more than whoever Purdue has as their starting quarterback. Following week against Rutgers is also going to be one that they might have a chance in, considering Rutgers hasn't been too successful the last few years. But Greg Schiano has done a great job of rebuilding this program, and they have been a lot more competitive the last few years, despite their record not improving too much. And that comes on the back of Athan Kaliakmanis as their starting quarterback, who is returning this season. And I think he's one of the more underrated quarterbacks, not only in the Big Ten, but in college football in general. Good dual threat capability and has been at this program for a very long time. So he knows what he's doing in this Rutgers offense. I think with the amount of youth that Rutgers has on this team that has been at the program the last few years, I think the connections are going to be what makes a difference in this game, even if it is a road game for the Scarlet Knights. Purdue is going to lose this one once again. And then it is a road trip to the Big House to face the Michigan Wolverines. And this is going to be a really tough one for them. Even if Michigan has some concerns on the offense with a true freshman likely starting as their quarterback in an offense that has not been too good the last few years, but it doesn't matter when you constantly churn out top 10 defenses season after season. Even if there are some severe punishments from the NCAA about the sign stealing scandal, I don't think it will really change the outcome of this game. Michigan gets the win, and Purdue has now lost 7 games in a row.
And the schedule gets even more difficult after that. They do play at home this next game, but the bad news is it's against the defending national champions. Is there much more that needs to be said about this game? I really don't think so. Buckeyes are going to wipe the floor with the Boilermakers. And then it's a road trip into one of the most underrated home environments in the country. Washington is on a 20-game win streak at home, and I think they're absolutely going to continue that against Purdue. This is a very solid team, actually. A lot of people overlooking them. They're one of our playoff dark horses. You got Demond Williams at quarterback, who is a young guy, but he looked very good in the bowl game against Louisville. I think that the wide receiver room is really going to have to step up for him. But if that can happen, this is going to be a very, very good Washington team. They had a good transfer portal class, and I think Jed Fish is a great head coach. The Huskies are going to have a great season this year, and it will, without a doubt, include a win against Purdue.
And Purdue's final chance to get a win this season and their last chance to get a Big Ten win as well is their in-state rivalry game against Indiana. And after last season, with the Hoosiers going to the college football playoffs on the backs of both head coach Kurt Cignetti and starting quarterback Curtis Rourke, I think Indiana has a pretty solid chance of repeating some of that success from last year. I don't know if they're going to make the college football playoffs this year, but bringing in Fernando Mendoza definitely boosts their chances, along with the return of star wide receiver Elijah Surratt. There's really, once again, no competition between these two teams. Purdue really doesn't have anything going for them outside of that returning running back in Devin Mockabee, but he can't do it all, especially behind an offensive line that has so many new transfers coming in. This Purdue team is just going to be so horrendously bad going into next year. 2-10 is going to be their final record.
Which is the same as our way too early prediction, and that projection was 2.95 wins, 9.05 losses. The new projection, 2.75 wins and 9.25 losses. It got a little bit worse, zero point 0.8 and 8.2 at the Big Ten. The floor, though, I think that's the good news for Purdue. Probably going to be 2-10. Now, I could maybe see a upset in the Southern Illinois game, but if that were to happen, I think that there's a decent enough chance Purdue would figure out a way to get a win against somebody like Northwestern later. I think that there's a good chance they'll get 2 wins. The ceiling, though, is 4-8. I think outside of those first 2 games, the only other two they have a chance in are both Northwestern and Rutgers. Everything else you can go ahead and pencil in as a loss for the Boilermakers this season. It's going to be a rough year for Purdue. So, thank you guys for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in our next video.